Welcome back to the New SC Podcast. I'm Hunter Ziesman here with Randall Adet Jr. As always, we got the Egg Bowl. It's the last week of the season. Ole Miss plays Mississippi State. This is one of my favorite rivalries in the conference. I remember back to when I was in college. The peeing on the pylon. I remember some of these like highlight matchups between these two teams that have a lot of hatred towards each other. And this is going to be a big game. And I want to start out by saying this. So let's save all the Lane Kiffin talk till the end of the video. I think it's a little disrespectful to the product that these two teams, especially Ole Miss, has put on the field this season, put themselves in a position to be a playoff contending team, an SEC championship contending team, for every conversation about this team to be focused on where their head coach is going to go. Right. Let's talk about Kwan Lacey, number one in the nation in rushing touchdowns. Let's talk about Trinidad Chambliss, D2 transfer coming in here and leading this team to the playoffs. Let's talk about this defense that's doing great things. And on Mississippi State side, talk about them too. They have good players on their program. It shouldn't all be about Lane Kiffin. We'll save that to the end. Let's talk about football.
I'm right there with you. I'm not trying to focus on which losers in the conference are trying to take Ole Miss as head coach. And I'm going to refer to them as losers because they obviously are not in contention to play in the playoffs or the SEC championship. Bringing it back to football, we got a really fun matchup here. Ole Miss right now in this game favored 8.5. And the over-under is 62.5. The Egg Bowl is always one that delivers a ton of entertainment value. And this year, more than ever, there's actually stuff on the line for both teams. Last year, coming into this game, it was kind of pretty known that Ole Miss was going to be on the outside looking in for the playoffs. That South Carolina was in that spot kind of. Alabama had that like on the bubble, closest up.
Three-way tie.
Then it was Ole Miss. Then it was South Carolina. Miami was kind of still in the mix. This year, it's very clear and evident you win this game, SEC championship game or not, you're in the playoffs, unless the committee decides to randomly drop them, a ton of spots. Right. So a lot on the line there. And then for Mississippi State, I'll pass the rock to you. What's on the line for them? I mean,
it's huge. There's bowl eligibility conversations. They're overperforming to the expectations, at least from Vegas' side on the season. And for Mississippi State, it's rivalry week. There's nothing that they want to do more than try to spoil Ole Miss's season. Give them another loss, have the playoff game that they get be not in Oxford, have them go on the road. You don't want to see the success of your, in-state rival program. So there's some fired up Mississippi State players, I'm sure, coming into this game. Ole Miss on the other side, you hope that the mentality has been there, that they've been able to focus. We know, the noise around the program. There's some question marks in this game. I kind of want to open it up with the Mississippi State quarterback situation. We've seen Blake Shapen's injury kind of linger. He comes back, and then they play Camario, in the second half of games, kind of near the end. It seems like the Mississippi State faithful wants KT to start.
Yeah, it's like I guess if I'm a Mississippi State fan, you might as well see what your future could look like. You know what you're going to get from Blake Shapen. You're going to get a guy who's a gamer, a guy who's going to put it all out there, and sometimes put it all out there to the wrong team too much. And so, it's just, why not run with the quarterback who's shown that he can run? He obviously probably has more development to get to, but when he's on the field, I mean, he's making plays. He scored a good amount of points against Georgia in some of the garbage time, and so it's like, why not rock with him? Honestly.
It's the two sides. You bring experience or you bring maybe potential. I guess those are the two options you're weighing. The expectation before the Missouri game was that maybe Shapen wouldn't be good to go there. You got to start Kamario in that game. Shapen ends up playing 2 picks, 2 rushing touchdowns. KT comes in later after the game's out of reach. He's only had 24 career passing attempts. He has more rushing attempts than that. So looking at the two sides, can you win this game with Blake Shapen? He's mistake prone, like you said, or do you mix it up, put this, extremely green freshman in behind potential? It's tough for me to call where I start to lean the Shapen side.
Yeah. Because when you lean on the Shapen side, you look at this could be potentially his last game of college football. And it's like, I think about the Texas game.
Yeah. Well, it's the O-line for me. They're the 6th worst in the nation, allowing 3.6 sacks per game. Do you want to put a guy behind there without experience, start seeing ghosts, or do you want to put Blake Shapen back there who might turn over the ball a few times, but at least he has experience behind that O-line playing college football? So it's like, I don't think that Ole Miss is going to slow down, any sort of pressure. I think they're going to get home a few times. Just who do you think is going to perform better in that environment? Is it a runner who can evade that and get out? I don't know.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, Ole Miss and Mississippi State, both these teams are kind of hovering between 20 to 22 sacks in the season defensively. So, like, they've proven they can get some pressure. It's not like number one in the SEC, but they have a formidable pass rush that can get some pressure on the Mississippi State offensive line.
Yeah, and they had a bye week. Both teams had bye weeks. If you're Mississippi State, did you go back and look at some Taylor Green tape? You look, back from September. You look at some Gunnar Stockton tape. You see how maybe you can attack Ole Miss with quarterback legs, and you try to bring that into this game. It didn't work for Mateer. It sure as hell didn't work for Lenora Sellers trying to do it against Ole Miss. But, you started seeing some things with Arkansas, with Georgia, at being able to do that. So, bowl eligibility on the line, rivalry matchup. Do you stay conservative, or do you try to do something to trip up this team? We don't know.
You got to throw the
Sunday,
whole kitchen.
So.
You throw the whole kitchen sink out there. You're playing, like you said, for a bowl game. Like, your season's going to end on Friday if you don't win. So,
yeah.
On the Ole Miss side, I mean, what kind of stands out to you when you look at this Ole Miss team in this matchup particularly?
I'm looking at the defense or the offense. They're hard to stop. 8 guys with 20-plus targets. They are the only team in the SEC. They're actually the only team in the college football playoff top 10 that's doing that. And oh, by the way, they have probably the best running back in the nation, Kawan Lacey. Most rushing touchdowns, second most rush attempts. Kind of one of those true bell cow running backs. If you go just inside the SEC and you only put his yards after contact, he still has the 7th most yards in the SEC from a running back. He's doing things. They're moving the ball well, effectively. It's going to take a lot from Mississippi State to stop that. I don't see it.
I'm pretty sure he's the single season rushing yard or rushing TD leader now at Ole Miss. Took over Quinshon Judkins' record from a couple of years ago. 1,136 yards in the season. That's second in the SEC in rushing yards. I mean, he is doing things that we haven't seen, and it's pairing well with Trinidad Chambliss, right? We saw Trinidad this past game. I think he had one touchdown against Florida, but that was paired with Kawan Lacey's 3 touchdowns on the ground. Right. So Trinidad hasn't had to necessarily be the guy. He's got 19 touchdowns in the season, 4 interceptions. But, you pair that with all the weapons he's dispersing the ball around to. Kawan Lacey can make plays both in the air and on the ground. It's a really hard offense to attack. That's now the number 1 overall yards per game offense in the SEC.
And you look at Mississippi State, 123rd in the nation in rushing yards allowed per game, over 200. That's heavily weighted by the Missouri game, where Ahmad Hardy, went off for a video game performance. But there's room for Kawan Lacey to work here. And, Trinidad Chambliss, like you said, I mean, he's had, I don't want to say ups and downs, because there's been a lot of ups, and then even the downs are just little bumps.
Yeah, he threw an interception in that game against Florida. The game was close for a little bit. They ended up winning 34-24, but it wasn't his best game, and he hasn't necessarily shown us like lights out performance. It's a little bit above game manager, but it's not like a liability by any means.
And I think that's a problem for another day. Like right now, if you're going to make a playoff run, more than likely you're going to make a run. You're going to have a home game that's favorable. You might. You win that, you have another game in a neutral site. I don't know if this is the type of game where you're going to need Trinidad Chambliss to have a game-winning 2-minute drive, or to 1-minute drive, or some heroics. I don't know if you need that from him in this game, because I think that they're going to be able to get things going all game. The problem for another day in my mind, just because of what Kawan Lacey's doing. I want to see the O-line get a little bit back to their early season form. That's kind of dropped off a little bit over the past couple of weeks as far as pressure is concerned.
Yeah.
So this could be a good one to get back to that form.
Yeah, I think we recognize the O-line for Team of the Week when they played Kentucky or LSU, and just what they've been able to do. Obviously, run blocking wise, they've been doing phenomenal, and it helps when you got a guy behind in the backfield with like Lacey. I agree with you. I don't necessarily think that they're going to have to that Trinidad Chambliss will have to do that much in this game, because I look at where these two teams sit strengths wise, seeing 12 games of football, or how many games of football we've seen this season. What Mississippi State can do well against this Ole Miss team is run the football as well. So right now, Mississippi State or Ole Miss is sitting at 9th in the SEC in rushing yards allowed, 152 yards allowed. So it's one of those things. Sorry, they're sitting 13th in the SEC in rushing defense. So it's actually pretty bad. So right now, you talked about how bad Mississippi State's rushing defense was, 16th in the SEC, obviously 128th in the country. They can run the ball, this Ole Miss team, but I don't think running the ball is going to be enough for Mississippi State to stay in the game. And that's where I just naturally imagine Ole Miss will outpace them scoring wise. And if you're constantly playing from behind, even with Booth and the guys in the backfield, you have to pass the ball to win the game.
You're going to have to. We've seen some teams be able to put up points on the Ole Miss defense. Looking at Mississippi State defense, how they could maybe work. We haven't talked a whole lot on the defenses here, but Mississippi State defense, I want to highlight a couple guys here, and it's going to be, Brylan Lanier, Jerron Manning. Those are two guys to keep an eye on in this game. They're playing just under from the safety position. They're playing just under half of their snaps down in the box. I went back and watched the Missouri game to see if maybe that shifted. It was similar there. They were just missing a couple tackles. 9 tackles total in that game between the two guys, but they missed about 3 or 4. So I want to see how those two safeties step down into the box to try to stop Kawan Lacey. And that's something I'm going to be keeping an eye on is how do you maybe finish those plays instead of having missed tackles, because that's what Kawan Lacey's doing well, breaking tackles.
And historically on the season, the safeties have had to do that this year, right? When you're giving out that many rushing yards, that means that running backs are getting to the second level. They're getting past the linebackers, and the last player has to come in this case, the safety, to make those tackles. And I love that you highlighted Lanier. One thing I think about, if you are able to kind of slow down the running attack, is what can they do against the passing? So right now, Mississippi State ranks 3rd in the SEC in interceptions. Brylan Lanier leads the team in interceptions. So two interceptions against Florida, 1 interception against USM in week 1. Those type of plays can really change this game and give more possessions back to Mississippi State to give them a better chance to win the game as well. And so Lanier's a guy to highlight when you think about that 3rd most interceptions, and then Kelly Jones as well with 2 picks on the year. And they've come in really key games. So like for Kelly Jones, it was Texas and it was Texas A&M. So one of those games they were in. So if they can get turnovers, definitely changes the overall winning percentage odds for Mississippi State.
There's room there. There's room there for it. We saw them get a key turnover in the Georgia game, out of reach, but they got a forced fumble there. There's opportunities for that. Looking at the Ole Miss defense, a guy I want to highlight is Prince Will Ume-Milalan. Oh, the guy I want to highlight is Prince Will. 13% pass rush win rate. 25% pass rush win rate on true pass sets. That's 7th in the SEC, is the 8th most overall sacks in the SEC. Keep an eye on him, how they're able to get pressure on the quarterback. Should they flush those guys out? Highlighting TJ Daugherty is kind of that tracking, linebacker. How do we stop these guys from spilling out? We've seen Blake Shapen be able to take off here and there, especially, KamarioTaylor, how he might be able to get out from the backfield.
Yeah, there's definitely key guys to highlight. And I love watching TJ Daugherty's game. I mean, he's super fun to watch, and pairing well with Suntarine as well on the team. And so it's a really tough defense to go at. I don't think the stats always tell the story as well for Ole Miss. I mean, they're 7th overall in pass offense, 3rd overall in pass defense. So definitely have the ability to slow down some of these teams passing wise. I mean, we saw it even against Oklahoma as well, and some of the other teams in the conference. Like I said, I think the main guys I wanted to highlight for Mississippi State were those 2 safeties, Kelly Jones and Brylan Lanier, that you mentioned. And on the offensive side, it's pretty obvious for Ole Miss. It's Kawan Lacey and what he brings and how hard he's been able to stop. It's really tough to see Mississippi State stopping a rusher after we saw what Nate Fraser's done to them, and we've seen what Ahmad Hardy's done to them. They're getting the SEC running back champions class gauntlet right now. So I'm excited to watch how it goes, because either we're going to see amazing defense and someone finally stop Kawan Lacey, or it's going to be him continuing to do what he does, and I think earning himself to be in the conversation for the DOAC running back award.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going to be another big game for him. I think this is one where Ole Miss kind of continues to cruise into the playoffs, finds themselves, watching 2 more games. You're watching the Auburn, Alabama game. You're watching the Texas A&M game to try to get a spot in the SEC championship. I think that they keep rolling here. I'm going to go Mississippi State 20, Ole Miss 42. Basically, it's a high scoring over under on this game. I think that there's going to be some breakaway runs that Ole Miss has, and that's where I see this game flipping.
Yeah, the way you said that at first, like Mississippi State score first, I was like, is he about to pick Mississippi State? No, so I got Ole Miss 38. I think Mississippi State 16. I think once the Ole Miss gets up to a pretty good lead, 10, 17 points, it's going to be hard to kind of play this back and forth game, but I might be surprised. It might go back and forth for a while. I could see it being, 21, 24 at half, and then Ole Miss kind of picks it up in the second half and pulls away as well. So
okay. Well, we'll see. The line, I'm seeing some books at 8.5, some at 7.5. Might buy it down to 6.5 just to be sure, in a one-score game. We'll see what happens. It's a big rivalry. It's hard to predict these weeks because there's some additional emotions. Ole Miss playing on the road here.
Yeah. I know I was going to say, you go ahead. It's kind of the elephant in the room. We've talked a lot of ball.
Yeah. Now we can talk coach and less about I don't know. I mean, where he goes, to me, if I'm Ole Miss, it's irrelevant. I mean, I think he's probably leaving just because of the uncertainty around the conversation and the weirdness that, between the AD, between him conversationally. I don't think it's looking like he's going to stay. Does that matter? I guess is the conversation to Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think if I was an Ole Miss fan, you control what you can control. You can't control where your coach decides to go. I would just cherish the season. Make sure you want him to be focused on this team going into the playoffs and winning this game, and that it should not deter them from winning this game and getting to where they want to go. You can't control what's happening. I think from what I've heard reported, you hear the overall financial figure of $97 million. You hear the figure of $25 million a year to put towards the roster. If that is what is important to him, either Ole Miss has the money or they don't. And you can't really control that once again. So easy for me to say, right? I'm neutral in this situation, but if you don't have the $97 million, you don't have the $25 million. If his heart is not saying that we have enough resources to get where I want to go, you got to let him walk. You just got to accept that. That's all. There's nothing you can really do there. And on Lane Kiffin's side, Jimmy Sexton's side, CAA, Creative Arts Agency, Lane Kiffin is clearly trying to use the different job openings to see how he can get the highest price. Yeah. So I get the delay in terms of waiting till Friday, and I respect Ole Miss for putting the pressure on him to make a decision because it affects the portal, it affects the recruiting, it affects the players they have committed right now. So that's how I see it from all three sides.
I think you laid it out perfectly. Now, if you've listened to the channel for a while, you might know I went to Alabama. This wouldn't be the first time that Lane Kiffin has helped coach a team to the playoffs and left. He did it to Alabama while I was in school there. And, the show goes on. What the conversation is about playoffs is that we saw it is the Jordan Travis rule, where now all of a sudden your team is not the same team to this point. Does it affect their ranking, not having Lane Kiffin at the helm? That's the conversation. But I would say, you put Pete Golden, your interim head coach, he has just as much playoff experience as Lane Kiffin does, if not maybe a little bit more if you broke out the games. Both of them, their only experience coming during their time at Alabama. So I don't know how much that really should affect it, especially dropping a team from, 7 to potentially not getting a home game, which is the only way that it would really matter.
Yeah. And I don't agree with that rule, because why is the assumption that the team will be worse because their head coach is leaving? If I don't know, what if it was a scenario where the head coach was leaving, but the DC was getting promoted and it was a defensive team? I think in that case, they would probably keep the team at the same spot or have them go up. So I don't know exactly who the OC is for Ole Miss, but to make the assumption that a team is losing their coach, therefore they should be judged differently, and in that case negatively, is a weird bias to have. There's no way to know if they would be better or worse or the same. I would just stick to assuming it's the same.
Right. And you continue to have your staff, right? You got your players. I mean, this is a team. They're trying to fight for a national championship. This isn't a team going into just some normal, regular bowl game. They're here to try to win a national championship. So
yeah, it's a team that was up 10 points on Georgia, and everyone believes a lot of people believe Georgia's the best team in the SEC. This is a good team. This is definitely a national championship team.
Right. I don't think that anything changes. I don't think that anything should change. I think that that's just a lot of additional people using the situation. It's a very high click situation on the internet to talk about Lane Kiffin, and we're doing it right now. But it's creating all these additional stories. Does it affect the playoff ranking? I don't think so, man. They're proving that they can do it at a high level.
It's not fair to the players. It's not it's not fair to the players to make that affect the playoff ranking. That is so disrespectful to everything that these players have put in on the field week in and week out since August and even prior to that in spring ball.
And I don't think it will affect it. I think it's all smoke. I think it's just talk. So I don't think it will affect it. I think this team continues to ride. Like I said, I think Ole Miss wins this game. I think that they still continue to sit where they are, 7, in the rankings as they come out next week. we'll see what happens with them. It's a big game, Egg Bowl game. Let us know what you think. Ole Miss favored in this one. We're both taking Ole Miss, but Mississippi State, something to play for as well.
Any given Friday.
Any given Friday. That's right.
Yeah.
We got 3 Friday SEC games this week. It's not something that happens very often, but I'm Hunter Ziesman here with Randall Ledette Jr. Hit that like button, subscribe button for more content around your 2 teams here in Mississippi. We love talking SEC football. Until next time.